if we had more community activists like Dave Meslin, the world would be a better place.
Not the big charities and the big nonprofits, but you, me, our parents, our siblings. How can we make a difference? And I've learned a lot of things on that journey. I'm going to share some stories with you in a few minutes. But first I want to tell you quickly about how I got involved with politics in the first place. And it goes back to my days in high school. I was always really into the idea of elections and democracy. I would watch elections on TV and leadership races. And when I heard in grade 10 that there was an opportunity to run for student council, I got really excited. And I decided I'm going to run for politics. I'm going to run in this election. I'm going to run for president of my high school student council. And I was really, really excited because I've always admired those people who were doing that on TV. And there were lots of guys named Dave in my school, probably over, I don't know, 50. It was kind of a useless name. If someone said, hey, Dave's looking for you, it didn't mean anything. So we all made up nicknames for ourselves, usually using part of our last name. So I was Mez, and most of my friends still call me Mez. And I thought, this is great. Mez for Prez. I mean, as far as high school campaign slogans go, that's profound, right? So we had, we made some materials. This was our flyer. This is dot matrix paper, circa 1991. And you know, vote Mez, it rhymes. This was a shoo-in. Like I had this totally set. I was going to win until the administration told me, you can't run. You're disqualified from this race. And I said, really? Why? That's absurd. And they said, your grades are too low. I didn't know there had been a threshold set on that. And I just spent a whole year learning about history, about democracy, how people died in the name of democracy so we could all participate. And now I'm being told that someone's telling me that I can't even run. I'm not even allowed to put my name on the ballot. And I said, but think about this for a second. The kids with straight A's, they're probably studying every night, right? And on the weekends. They don't have time for a student council. If you look at my grades, you will clearly see that I have a lot of free time. And I'm committed to investing that time on student council. And they didn't buy it. I thought it was a solid argument. So I fought back. I organized a petition that said, we support Dave Meslin's right to run for president of our student council, and the administration shouldn't set the rules of who's allowed to run. It's our student council, not yours. Hundreds of students signed the petition, which was really inspiring for me and fun. I also started a underground newspaper at my school called The Big Picture. And keep in mind, this is pre-YouTube, pre-Facebook, pre-Twitter. As most of you know, back then, if you wanted to get your message out, you had to write it out and get photocopies made of it. And you didn't tweet. You tweeted like this. Here, tweet. And a retweet was saying, can you pass this on to someone when you're done with it? Things couldn't get quite as viral. But so the big picture was a newspaper at my school, Earl Hague, that covered very important issues such as Dave Meslin's political aspirations being crushed by the heel of the administration of my school. And they didn't change the rule. I wasn't allowed to run. I've never run for any office, actually. But I had a lot of fun with that campaign. And it was inspiring to see how many people wanted to help me out with it, especially at that age where we're told that young people are so apathetic. People got really excited about it. Here's another quick story from my high school days. This is my grad photo. 2 years later, this is 1993. And as you can see, I don't look very happy in that photo. There's a few reasons why. One is the zit. That wasn't there all year. That was the 1 week of my grad year, the photo week. This huge Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer thing appears on my nose. So I'm unhappy because of that. I'm also unhappy because I wasn't allowed to run for president, right? That was still kind of pissing me off. But the reason in that moment that I was actually really unhappy is that in the room with the photographer, there was a small table, kind of like that one, and it had a bouquet of beautiful flowers on it. And I asked the photographer what the flowers were for. And he said, the girls get to hold the flowers in their photos. And I said, can I hold the flowers? And he said, no, of course not. I just told you it's for the girls. And again, like I've been taught about democracy and freedom of expression, freedom of choice. And I said, well, I want to hold the flowers. This is my photo. You know, if you don't want to hold it in your photo, fine. But this is my photo. My mom's paying for this photo. My mom is paying for this photo. I want to hold the flowers. And I said, I'm not getting off this seat unless you let me hold the flowers. And sure enough, in 1993, I was the only male in my yearbook who was holding the flowers. And let's just go back for a second. Look at the difference in my face. Unhappy, happier. The moral here is that if you stand up for what you believe in, you'll be a happier person. This is evidence. This is proof. So let me tell you what I've been doing since then. I started a group called the Toronto Public Space Committee in 2001. And it was a group that tried to raise awareness about the importance of collective ownership of the spaces we share, both physical, alleyways, parks, roads, but also democracy itself and City Hall and discourse. We did policy work at City Hall, trying to get bylaws changed, specifically around the issues around the over-commercialization of our public spaces and looking at who should have, the right to express themselves. And if we just have expression like this, you're essentially putting a price tag on freedom of expression. Whoever has the most money gets to have the biggest sign at the expense of the vibrant messages that could be coming from community groups or individuals who don't have that kind of resources. But we didn't just want to do the geeky policy work, although we did have fun with that. We also wanted to do fun, creative community building to get people thinking about these ideas in a way that was different than just reading staff reports and fighting City Hall. So we did some fun projects. One of them was called Guerilla Gardening. And guerrilla gardening is essentially vandalizing the city with nature. And we invited people to show up to guerrilla gardening events, and we said, you don't have to be an expert, you don't have to be a gardener, you need to bring a spoon. If you have a spoon, show up. And what we did is, we'd get down on our hands and knees and find, these are called orphan spaces. And there's spaces between a curb and a sidewalk, between a sidewalk and a building. Maybe a tree died once, so no one's replanted anything. And we'd get down on our hands and knees, and we would plant things in places that you're technically not really supposed to plant because, the city takes care of those things. Now, we're not going to change the world overnight by planting some flowers on the street. But the symbolism here is powerful because it's about getting people to see that we have a sense of collective ownership over spaces that are public. Think of how much effort we put into decorating our homes, our bodies, our hair, right? I mean, people aren't apathetic. They put a lot of effort and spend a lot of resources on making their environment how they want it to be, especially their homes. People spend crazy amounts of money, makeovers all the time. But then we don't necessarily invest that same energy into our larger collective space, which we're also owners of. It's part of our world. In a way, the whole city is our living room because we all share it. So what we would do with this is get people to reprogram their minds, because in that moment when you get down and dig that spoon in the ground, you're changing it the same way we do with our homes, and getting people to have that sense, the physical sensation of changing something that you own. The other one we did was called the Downtown Defense Project. And this project was about taking down fences. Now, we wouldn't do it guerrilla style like the first one. We wouldn't sneak out at night and just rip down people's fences. We would ask people if we could remove their fence. We offered free fence removal, because fences do a few things. The fences between our homes essentially send a very simple message to our neighbors: screw you. This is the line delineating where you shouldn't come too close to me. You seem like a nice fellow, but just stay away, thank you. That's a fence. But what I'm really worried about isn't the fence between our homes, it's the fence between our homes and the city. The fence at the front edge of our yard, which essentially says to the whole city, screw you, right? And it delineates that mark where your responsibility ends. I'm going to take care of my living room, take care of my bedroom, repaint the bathroom, mow my lawn, take care of everything right up to this line, right here, and someone else will take care of all of that. And I think that's problematic. So, what a great way to take down that mental fence in our head by actually getting people to take down the real fences on their yards. So we hung up these flyers on people's homes saying, hey, do you want to open up your neighborhood? This is what a fenced neighborhood looks like. This is what an open neighborhood looks like. Do you want to have a prison yard in front of your home? Or do you want to open things up? Give us a call. And sure enough, people started phoning me. I didn't know if this would work, kind of like the postcard project. Would anyone respond to that? They did. Same with this. Suddenly I start getting calls from people saying, yeah, take down my fence. And I'm like, shit, I don't know how to take down fences. I don't have any tools. Like, what is this? Is aluminum, steel, lead? I don't know. Is it in concrete? Like, what's under there? What's holding those posts up? So we had to research it, figure out how it actually all works. And then I sent out emails to this growing list of supporters online who heard about us through our advocacy campaigns in the gardening, saying, okay, who wants to help me? This time, don't bring a spoon, bring a pair of pliers. And sure enough, complete strangers showed up. And we learned how to take down fences. We learned how to use power tools and make sparks fly. We didn't have waivers. We probably should have. Here's some photos of people taking the chain link off, cutting down the pipes. Here's some before and after pictures. Beautiful. And what this shows, too, is the malleability. So what I'm often looking at is, what are the mental barriers that keep people from engaging? It's not that they're apathetic. No one in the world is apathetic. If apathetic means, I don't care. So ask someone, do you care about politics? They'll say, no, I don't care about politics. Ask them, do you care how long you wait for the bus in the morning if it's raining? Find me one person anywhere in the world who says, oh, I don't care. Hour, 2 hours? I'm apathetic. Right? Of course you care how long you wait in the rain. Well, if you care about how long you wait for the bus, then you care about municipal politics, because that's the decision. Those are the people who make that choice. And they get funding from provincial and federal politics. So you care. Everyone cares. Let's get that apathy word just in the garbage. There's mental barriers that prevent us from applying that caringness to action. So one of them, as I said before, was this sense of collective ownership. What's also lacking is a sense of malleability. So this chair is totally solid. Right? I guess we could melt it down. But under our current temperatures, it's not malleable. You can't change it. And if one of you had an idea that this chair would be better in a different shape, you're not going to come up here and try and change it, because you can't. You'd be wasting your time. Right? But if it was made out of Play-Doh, maybe you would. Most people see the entire world and all of our policies and all of our rules and our institutions and our physical spaces as this. It's malleable. You can't change it. But as we saw a few days ago with the American election, when a few states said gay people can now get married, no one would have dreamed of that 40 years ago. But some people said, you know what, maybe this can change. Maybe it's malleable. And they worked towards it. And if they hadn't thought it was malleable, they wouldn't have worked towards it. What this does, I've walked by these houses many times. This started because my street had a lot of these fences, and I got sick of it. But how many times did I walk back those fences just saying, oh, those are ugly, I wish they weren't there. But by putting up the flyers and getting down and taking them down, I'm saying it's malleable. Everything's malleable. And everyone who participated in this project was able to see right with their own eyes that their actions could contribute towards affecting that malleability. Here's a before picture. It's my favorite one. And after. And again, look how happy those people are. Mostly because they have ice cream cones. But also because they contributed with their physical actions to showing the malleability of their own neighborhood. This group never had staff, never had funds, never had an office, didn't have any legal status. Yet we were declared the best activist group in Toronto by both of our weekly magazines, which is astounding, because there's groups with lots of staff and offices, and it shows how much people can do when they're creative and when they're trying to bring people together to work on small, concrete actions in their neighborhood. We even were on the front page of one of our weekly magazines. And usually these magazines have rock stars, comedians, theater, the arts, whatever. For them to put a nonprofit group on was kind of unusual, and it's because we took a really creative, fun approach to getting people to talking about the issues while we were also doing the hardcore policy work at City Hall. I did a project last year called The Fourth Wall. It was an exhibit with 14 panels that explored how we could make local politics more participatory. The fourth wall is a theater term. So if I was on a stage, and I am, there'd be a wall behind me, a wall on my left, a wall on my right. This is the fourth wall. It's a theater term. And it represents the virtual barrier between the audience and the stage. And it works very well in theater, as I'm sure you know. And the idea is that the folks on the stage never look through the fourth wall, because you don't exist in my reality. I'm in a different time and a different place. And you want to be able to successfully imagine that I'm in a different time and a different place. You, on the other hand, on the audience, do the opposite. You look through the fourth wall, as you're doing right now, but completely passively, not talking to each other, not talking to me. And that works very well for theater. Sadly, it's an amazing analogy for what we have right now in our political culture, where a lot of people perceive decision makers, the folks at the top, bureaucrats and councillors and MPs and MLAs, of talking to each other rather than reaching out to you for input and ideas. But the audience is also being too passive. And even people think that they're really into politics and engaged. They're not. They're doing it in a passive way. They're through sound bites, through headlines, right? That's what political engagement means. 5 minutes, all right. That was in my head. So, luckily, the term is most used in theater in the context of breaking the fourth wall. If I look at the audience or wink at the audience or talk to the audience, I'm breaking the fourth wall. I'm saying, hey, we're all in the same room. Ferris Bueller does this in that movie. He talks well, it's not actually Ferris, but there you go, he was working. Matthew Broderick looks right in the camera and talks to the audience. He's breaking the fourth wall. Audience members can also break the fourth wall by heckling the stage, talking, walking on the stage, etc. So the question is, how do we break the fourth wall at City Hall and create a culture of two-way dialogue where these folks aren't just talking to each other and the folks in the audience aren't sitting there passively? And there's 36 recommendations that come out of this exhibit, and I'll run through one of them right now. It's about our public notices, and this is mentioned in my TED Talk. These are the public notices that municipalities use to inform you that something important is happening in your neighborhood. As you can see, it's not really designed well. In fact, using the word design at all in this context is charitable. This is designed in Microsoft Word, which is not a design program. And it's designed by a lawyer, and lawyers should not design things. You need to get halfway down this to even find out what address they're even talking about, that this might actually be related to you and your neighborhood. And then you need to get all the way to the bottom in tiny, tiny font to find out how you can have your voice heard. They're not even using new technologies that are available at a very low fee called bold or underline. Nothing, like no effort at all. So what I say in my TED Talk is, imagine if the private sector used these same design techniques to advertise things. This would be an ad for a pair of shoes. It has all the information you need buried in there somewhere, but no color, no design, etc. So what I propose in the TED Talk is that it's intentional exclusion. If no one shows up to this public meeting, it's not that they're apathetic, it's intentional exclusion because no one's tried to actually inform them. So I asked designers in Toronto, how would you design a public notice if you were trying to, number one, get people's attention, number two, let them know what the most important pieces of information are about how this might affect you, number three, what are the ways you can get involved, and number four, a proactive pitch saying, we want your input, we want to hear from you, because you've got to drag it out of people. And these are the kinds of designs people sent in. Absolutely beautiful, so different than what we see currently. There's another one, Speak Up Toronto, clear icons, color, have your say. There's the proactive statement. And the funny thing is that the city of Pemberton, or the village of Pemberton in BC, sent me an email half a year ago saying, you know what, we saw your exhibit online. We've completely redesigned our public notice based on your recommendations. We have clear icons, we have color, have your say, we're listening, we use bold, we use underline. So I made an award called the DNA Award, the Dazzling Notice Award, just for me. This is a good tip. If you make an award and frame it and give it to someone, they'll be excited, even if it's just coming from you. So I actually flew out there and gave this award to Jordan Sturdy, the mayor of Pemberton. And now I've got other cities fighting to win the DNA Award in 2013, which shows how much change you can have as an individual. Now, you've all seen these before. When you get a piece of furniture from IKEA or wherever, and it comes with 1,000 parts and 10 different bolts, and some are this big, and some are this big, and some are this big, imagine if it didn't come with one of these. And that's what we're doing with citizens. Democracy is really complicated. I mean, these are hard enough to put together with the instructions, right? So if we're not giving people the tools they need to understand how the system works, they're not going to engage. So what's my message here? My message is not that you should go out and plant some flowers in your neighborhood. My message is not that you should go out tomorrow and take down some fences. I have a very simple message, and the message is that everyone has something to contribute. Everyone has something. Everyone has something unique to contribute that no one else can contribute except for them. And the best and most innovative and creative ideas might not always come from the top. The best ideas of how to make our schools more inclusive and a good environment for learning might not come from principals and teachers. It might come from students. The best ideas of how to make our transit system more inviting so more people switch from cars to transit won't come from transit planners, it'll come from transit riders. The best way to make our neighborhoods more livable and inviting will not come from city councilors. It'll come from the residents who live in those neighborhoods. And the best way to make our private companies more innovative and competitive and creative might not come from the boardroom. It might come from the employees, the junior employees, and the customers. And as long as we have a culture of disengagement that discourages people from speaking out, we're robbing ourselves of hearing from those ideas. And until we can create a culture of participation where people have the confidence to break the fourth wall and know that they belong on stage, until they have a sense of collective ownership and know that their living room doesn't end at their living room, that the whole city is their living room, until they have a sense of malleability and know that anything can change, and until they have the tools to know how to submit their input into those processes at school, in the workplace, in our cities, then we'll continue to suffocate all of these amazing ideas. And at the end of the day, the best resource we have is you. Thank you.